So we're going to do a bit of a review using the graphic organizer from one of the questions on the homework. So remember, the first step is just that we're going to rename all of our our equations. It's A, B, and C, just for sake of simplicity. So we got 25A plus 5B plus C equals 30. There should be a copy of this graphic organizer up front too if y'all need one. Sorry, fellas. And a copy of the review sheet. And I'm going to do B, which is 49A plus 7B plus C equals 54. Remember, I changed the numbers after the equal sign on number 3. So I'm doing the new number 3 as an example. So if you want to follow along on your graphic organizer, it wouldn't hurt to have another example. So 9A plus 3B plus C equals 14. So all I did was just take my equations from question number 3. Remember, we only had to do 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8. And I just renamed my equations as A, B, and C to help keep my thoughts together. I'll give everybody a chance to kind of catch up. And then the steps that I'm going to show you all to use a calculator. We actually, the copy that I put online is color coded, and it kind of looks like the buttons on the calculator. So like for instance, the second button is blue, the enter button is gray, and then I have like a screenshot of the keypad for you all to kind of follow along with those buttons. But based on my first few classes, you all will master this after the first time and wonder why in the heck did you have to learn how to solve systems of equations with 3 variables by hand. But I will tell you that when you get to college level calculus, if you so choose to go to college and take calculus, there's a strong possibility that you will not be able to use your fancy graphing calculator. We had to use the 10 key, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and that was it at UT, and it sucked. So we got our 3 equations. For step 2, all we're doing is taking 2 of our original equations. So we're going to take 2 equations. Doesn't matter which 2. And eliminate 1 variable. So all of that language just basically means that I take 2 of my equations and I eliminate 1 variable. It doesn't necessarily matter if I eliminate A, B, or C, or X, Y, or Z. I'm just going to pick a variable and eliminate it. And it doesn't matter if I use A and B, or A and C, or B and C. I just have to use 2 equations. This particular example, they want us to use A and B on the graphic organizer, so that's what I'm going to use. But again, we don't necessarily have to do that. Sometimes it's easier if we use other equations. So all I did was just rewrite my equation A and my equation B. And whenever we eliminate, that tells us what should we do with our equations to get rid of a variable. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. Add. We're going to add. Group A, 20 points. Elimination basically means that we're going to add our equations together. Now, looking at this equation, which variable looks easiest to get rid of? The C, because it doesn't have a coefficient. However, I can't just add these 2 together in order to get rid of C. What do I have to do to one of my equations to be able to eliminate? Not divide. What's the opposite of it? Multiply by what? A -1. A -1. Alright, everybody, let's get the cloudiness out of our brains, okay? The coefficients are the same already. So I've got a 1 in front of my C and a 1 in front of this C. I need them to be opposite signs. So all I need to do is multiply one of my equations by a -1 to be able to make sure that my signs match. So I'm going to multiply my entire first equation by a negative 1 so that I flip the sign of the C variable so that when I add my equations together, they eliminate. And the reason why I'm able to do this is that the rules of algebra say that whatever I do to one side of the equal sign, I have to do it to the other. So this becomes a negative 1 times 25, which is a negative 25a. Negative 1 times 5b, which is minus 5b. Negative 1 times c, which is a negative c. And then a negative 1 times 30, which is a negative 30. And then elimination tells us we need to add them together. And I just want to note that we're getting rid of c. Because in step 3, I have to get rid of the exact same variable that I get rid of in step 2. So when I add my equations together, negative 25a plus, should be 49a, is what? 24a. And then negative 5b plus 7b plus 2b. Negative c plus c. What happens to those c's? They're gone. They're eliminated. That's why it's called elimination. And then negative 30 plus 54 is 24. So now I went from having two equations with three variables to one equation with two variables. And I know that I'm going to need this later, so I'm just going to take it and park it up here for later. So I've got 24a plus 2b is equal to 24. So I just took my new equation D and I parked it somewhere else for a little bit. Now step 3 is just like step 2. I need to take two different equations than step 2 and eliminate the same variable. I need to take two different equations, then I use in step 2 and eliminate the same variable. And in step 2 I eliminated C, and remember elimination means to add. Some of y'all were struggling, so you might want to put a note down there that elimination means that you're going to add your equations together to eliminate one of your variables. So all I'm going to do is just rewrite equation A, which is 25A plus 5B plus C equals 30. Now again, I don't have to use A and C. I could have used B and C, but I'm just using what's in the graphic organizer because it's a way to help organize our thoughts when we're dealing with so many variables and so many equations. So C is 9A plus 3B plus C equals 14. Now I have the same problem that I had in step C. If I need to get rid of C, they're not opposite signs. So how do I, somebody raise your hand and tell me, how do I get one of these to be opposite signs? Somebody, or I'm going to call on somebody. Go for it. You multiply one of the equations by a negative what? By a negative 1. So in this case, I'm going to multiply my first equation. The only reason why I like multiplying my first equation by a negative 1 is because it allows me to put a little arrow underneath and rewrite my new equation, and I can still keep my addition looking all nice and pretty. Alright, 20 points for group D. Today is, yeah, so group D needs the board. Somebody needs to get the board from group D. The way my knee's set up, y'all know I can't do it myself. I've already given 20 points to group D. Did I give anybody else points? I gave 40 points to group A. $40 for A and 20 for you. Now, if I distribute my negative 1 to every single one of my terms, or multiply every one of my terms by a negative 1, I create an entirely new equation. I've got negative 25A minus 5B minus C is equal to a negative 30. And then elimination tells us that we have to add our equations together. So negative 25 plus 9 is what? Negative 16a. And then negative 5b plus 3b is a negative 2b. And then what happens to the c's? They're gone. They're eliminated. And then a negative 30 plus 14 is a negative 16. So now I've got another equation that I just created where I eliminated my c variable, and I'm going to need this equation for later. So I'm going to go ahead and write it. I'm going to come back down, but I'm just going to write it up here before I forget as equation E. So again, all we did was eliminate the same variable as we did in step 2, in step 3, but using two different equations. And then we just move it up to the top in step 4. Can you see? There you go. Better? Alright. Now, in step 4, we went from essentially 3 equations and 3 variables to now 2 equations with 2 variables, and this is a whole lot easier. Not to mention, if I wanted to eliminate a variable in step 4, which one looks easiest to eliminate? The b's. Why? They're already opposites. And then elimination tells me that I add them together. So I've got a 24 minus 16a, which is 8a, 2b plus a negative 2b. Those eliminate, and this is equal to 8. And then how do I get rid of that 8? Everybody. Divide. Divide both sides by 8. Remember, 8a is the same thing as saying 8 times a, which means that my a is equal to 1. So now that I know that my a is equal to 1, step 5 in 2 words is what? One starts with a P, one starts with an I. Plug in. Plug in. Appreciate you raising your hand. 5 points for group E, 10 for group A, because India has been on fire. So step 5 is just plug in. Now that I know A, I can take A and plug it into either one of my 2 equations and solve for B. And here they say we could plug it into D, but it really doesn't matter. I could have plugged it into E. I'm going to plug it into D just because. So 24A plus 2B is equal to 24. And now everywhere that I have an A, I know that A equals a 1. I usually like to put parentheses around anything that I'm plugging in because it signifies that I'm like replacing something. Plus 2B is equal to 24. 24 plus 2B is equal to 24. Remember, we're doing PEMDAS backwards, so I get rid of addition and subtraction first. So how do I get rid of that 24? I'm going to subtract 24 from both sides. And I get 2b is equal to 0. And then how do I get rid of that 2? I need more energy. How do I get rid of that 2? Divide. That was like begrudging energy. Divide. I think that was Mr. Williams that sounded like that. B equals 0. I'll take that for now, I guess. So now I know A, I know B, and then again, step 6, summed up in 2 words is what? Everybody? Plug in. Plug in again. So now that I know A is equal to 1 and B is equal to 0, I can plug those into one of my original equations to be able to solve for C, which is still my unknown. They want us to use equation A. Equation A looks a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to say forget them. And I'm going to use equation C. So I've got 9a plus 3b plus c equals 14. I know that everywhere I have an a, I can replace that with a what? A 1. And everywhere that I have a b, I can replace that with a 0 plus c equals 14. So I've got 9 plus c is equal to 14. And then how do I get rid of that 9? Subtract 9 from both sides, and I get c is equal to 5. And remember, whenever we write our answers, we write them in alphabetical order. So a, comma, b, comma, c, which means that my answer is 1, comma, 0, comma, 5. Alright? Now for the fun part. I'll give you another second or two to record this. Everybody get out your calculator. So your calculator and your computers are going to correspond to the numbers on your desk. So whatever the number on your desk is, that's the calculator that you'll grab. Now, we know our solutions are 1, 0, and 5. Now, let's test whether or not this whole system of using a calculator will work. The first thing I need you all to do on your calculator is reset the memory so that we can start from scratch. So push second, the plus symbol, and then 712, and you should see where it says RAM cleared. Second, the plus symbol, and then 712, and it'll clear your RAM. Once everybody's done that, and we're going to follow along with these: second, the blue button, the plus symbol, and then the number 7, the number 1, and the number 2. Second, the plus symbol, 7, 1, 2. And it should say RAM cleared. Now, we're going to use the instructions. Again, I posted these online. I made the buttons to try and match up with the color of the buttons on your calculator. First thing we're going to do is press the second key, and then we're going to press the matrix key, which is the same thing as the inverse key. So which is x to the negative 1. See where it says matrix? Press that. Raise your hand if you did not get to this screen. So you press second and then matrix, and then we go over to where it says edit, and we go over to edit and press enter. Now the calculator is asking us what are the dimensions of our matrix. The dimensions of a matrix are rows by columns, and in this case, since we're doing a 3 by 3 system, 3 variables, 3 equations, you also count the opposite side of the equal sign, or the other side of the equal sign, as a column. So this is going to be a 3 by 4 matrix. So your dimensions are going to be 3 by 4. And then you push enter, and you see a bunch of zeros. Now those zeros serve a purpose, ladies and gentlemen. Those zeros are going to be the coefficients of your variables. As long as your variables are organized in columns of like variables, so you see how all of the A's are together, all of the B's are together, all of the C's are together, and then all of the constants or the equal signs are together, the numbers over here. As long as they're organized like that, you're going to put the coefficients into each one of these spots. So the first one is going to be 25 in row 1. Then push enter. The second coefficient is 5. The third coefficient is what? Is 1. And then the last number is 30. And you push enter. And then the second row, first coefficient is 49. Second coefficient is 7. Third coefficient is 1. And then the last number on the other side of the equal sign is 54. And then the last row, remember, rows are left to right, columns are up and down. First coefficient is 9. Second coefficient is 3. third coefficient is 1, and the last number is 14. Once you enter them all, we need to go back to the home screen. So then you push second and then mode to go back to the home screen. It's the second button and then mode, which is the button right next to it, to go back to the home screen. It quits to the home screen. Now we need to actually tell the matrix and the calculator to do what we want it to do. So then I'm going to press second matrix from the home screen, and then I'm going to go over to where it says math. And I'm going to scroll down to where it says RREF, which says option B, RREF. And then I push enter. And now your calculator is saying, you want me to do something, but you need to point me to where I can find the data that I need to do whatever it is that you want me to do. So then you push second matrix. Which matrix did we put our data in? A. So then you push enter and enter again. And if you look at this fourth column, 105, what was the answer to our system? 105. It's in order as A, B, and C. It does. However, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, your test is going to be 6 3 variable systems. 3 of them with a calculator and 3 of them without. Okay? Because remember, our test, which is in this class, Wednesday of next week. That's why y'all got the review today as a handout walking in. I'm going to walk through those steps one more time, and then we're going to try it with another example where you don't actually have all of your variables represented. Like here, what if we didn't have an A or we didn't have a B? So I can show you how that works. So I want you to clear your memory. So second, the plus symbol, 712. We're going to do it again. And I want y'all to help me with the steps. I forgot them. What's the first button I press? Second. Then what? Plus. We already cleared the memory. Second matrix. Yeah. I know. We already cleared the memory. Second matrix. Then go over to edit. And then we push enter because we want to edit matrix A. And it'll be a 3x4 matrix because we're doing a 3 variable, 3 equation system. So it'll be 3x4. And count the last column is after the equal sign. What do I put in the zeros? The coefficients, which is the number in front of your variable. And your constants, or just the whole numbers, or the numbers. So the first one is going to be 25, 5, 1, and 30. The second one's going to be 49, 7, 1, and 54. And then I'm going to do 9, 3, 1, and 14. Am I going too fast? And once we enter all of our data, then what do we press? Second. And then what? Mode. To quit back to the home screen. Jamari's on it today, as usual. And it's not a no cap, Jamari. It's just recognizing it. One of my favorite artists is what is it? The Baby, or is it not Lil Baby? The Baby. He's one of my favorite artists, and yeah, it's one of his favorite lines. So you may hear it every now and then. So what? Old people? Cool. You'll fail. All right. Yeah, I'm messing with you. All right. Now, what do we press next? Second, and then matrix. Math.
Scroll down to RREF.
RREF, which is option B. And then we got to tell our matrix what?
Matrix.
Which matrix we want to use, where we get our data from. So we press second.
Matrix. Enter. Enter again.
And there you go. I wish I would have learned how to solve this by hand this easy. You didn't get it? You might not have entered in your data the right way. So you do second and then math. Second matrix, you go to math, you go down to where it says RREF, which is option B. And then you do second Then you do second matrix, enter, enter. Did you get it that time? What's up, Andrew?
What do the numbers mean? Like how it's 1, 1, 1 diagonal?
I'm not 100% sure right now, but I will get back to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. I learned how to do this 2 days ago, and I was like, "Yep, I'm gonna show them how to do this." All right, because to be completely honest with you, the way that we were supposed to show you all was a lot more in depth than this.
Cool.
Yeah. So now that we've done a couple examples, let's go back in our in our notes and look at an example that isn't as easy or isn't as straightforward. So remember when we did example, let's go back to example 1A, where our original equation didn't necessarily have values for everything. So we're going to go back to example 1A from lesson 5. You're on the right page. Yeah. Example 1A. Before we try and use this matrix, what do we need to do first? Second plus symbol 712. What's going on? I will find out what those ones and zeros mean. You're not the first person to ask me that, Andrew. But I'll find out and I'll get back with you.
At least you were honest.
I've told y'all I'm not going to lie to y'all. Like, I'm going to be completely honest with y'all. If I don't know something, my background is business, not math. So
That gives me so much
it gives you so much what?
faith.
So much faith?
My teacher said the same thing. She's like, yeah, my background wasn't in math actually. And I was like, what?
Yeah, but let's compare your teacher from before to me. She probably can't hold a candle, so we'll be all right. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Sorry, my bad. Humble brag. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's try this using a system where we don't necessarily have values for everything. So we're going to do second matrix, and then we're going to go over to edit. And we still have a 3x4 matrix because we got to set up our matrix based on the size of the entire matrix. A matrix is like a rectangle, a box. So you got to have the dimensions regardless of whether something's represented or not. So I'm going to do 3x4 again. And then again, we enter in our coefficients. So what's the first one? 1. What's the second one? -2. What's the third one? 1. And then what? -4. Now we got to be careful here, ladies and gentlemen. Because if you look at this second row, they kind of push things over a little bit. We don't have a z at all. So we need to make sure that whenever we get to the column for z, which is the third column, we put a 0. So what's my first one? -4. What's my second one? 1. And then I'm going to put a 0 because I don't have a z term. And then after the equal sign, I have a -7. Push enter. And here I only have a z. So what am I going to put for x and y? 0. So I'll put 0 and 0. And then I'm going to put a 1 because remember we still got z. And the number in front of my z is 1. Good job, Jamar. And then -4. So now I've entered in all of my values. I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to stop right here because I'm causing some stress. So all I did was take this example and I plugged in my values. Okay? This is not supposed to stress you out. So all I did here was I went with the coefficients of 1, -2, and 1. And then since some of these didn't have variables, I just put in a 0. So like this second equation didn't have a z. So in the third column, right here, I put in a 0 because there is no z. And then the bottom one, it didn't have an x or a y, so I put zeros for those coefficients. Let's keep our voices down, ladies and gentlemen. And then on the right side of the equal sign, it's just the last column. I'll come over there and help you individually afterwards too. So then, once we've entered in all of our values, we press second mode to quit back to the home screen. And then we press what? Second matrix. We're going to go to math. And then we scroll down to RF, whatever that means. And then we have to tell it which matrix we put our data in. So you do second matrix. We put our data in matrix A. And you push enter. And 2, 1, and a -4. We did this by hand a couple days ago. And look at what we got. 2, 1, and a -4.
Look at how less work.
It's a whole lot less work.
Thanks, calculator.
Yeah. And y'all can use the calculator on some of the tests, but not all. Any questions? Yes, sir.
We get to pick where we use the calculator.
Absolutely not.
Wow.
All right. Any other questions? The test is printed, and it says either calc or non-calc. And I think there's like 6 non-calculated questions and like maybe 10 calculated questions. I won't, but I've already shared it on Google Classroom, the Word document with the colors and everything, so you have it.
So you're saying we can use that and print it?
Not if you print
What
it.
if we write it?
If you get the test and you write it down, what if you write it on your review?
Yeah, if we like staple it to our review.
I'll think about it.
Okay.
I'll think about
Hey,
it.
this is part of the review.